welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who's built a strong referral driven business by leaning into education, communication, and doing the little things really well. She works in a bank driven, competitive market, and despite that, she's found ways to stand out without being loud or salesy. We'll get into how she thinks about serving clients, building trust with referral partners, and what she believes actually matters long term in this business. Katie Stockert, welcome to the Lowdown.
Thank you. That was great.
Hey, I aim to please. But I hear great things about you, and I know you're doing a great job out there in the market. So I'm excited to have you be a part of this and have this conversation. A lot of people who listen to the show are kind of what I call evolving originators, people who've sort of figured out the basics of the job, but they yearn for more and they want to find out from other originators who've kind of been through that struggle, how to come out on the other side of it and some of those things that they've done along the way to really kind of get to the growth that they've seen in their business. And so I appreciate you being on. I wanted to start kind of from the beginning. Of course, it's a great place to start. And when you first got into the mortgage industry, what would you say surprised you the most about the job versus what you expected going in?
Yeah, I think that the sales aspect is probably what I didn't fully understand really at all going into it. I mean, I came from just the normal retail side of banking where people walked in, you gave them a car loan. People walked in, you gave them a checking account. There was no talk ever of like hunting and finding your own business and how do you even do that? If you would have asked me 6 years ago if I would have thought I'd be good at sales, I would have been like, no. So I think that was just a completely new thing that I had to figure out what to do and did not know going into it. I always enjoyed the finances and helping people, and I had done retail, different types of retail my entire career up until now, but having to actually be like belly to belly and selling something was not something that I understood was part of like a true mortgage career.
So, and early on, I know just from talking with you that you started like consuming mortgage content, right? And podcasts and really sort of getting into the culture of things, which I did about 2 years ago myself. And there's some really great podcasts out there, by the way. But like, how did that shape the way you thought about what a good loan officer looks like?
Yeah, I think that, when I first got into mortgage, I was talking to the director of the mortgage department at the time. And he was kind of asking me about my career goals and what I wanted to do with my life. And I didn't fully know, but I knew that I was driven. I said verbatim, I don't really care about life balance. Like at that point, I was in my early 20s and single, and what else am I going to do but work? And I kind of explained all of that. And then from there, crap, Connor, what was the question? I'm just like completely lost it.
That's all right. How did the content, the podcast, the things that
Oh,
you
yes.
listened to early on, how did that shape, kind of your
Yeah.
thoughts around being a loan officer?
So when I was describing this and I was telling him about the books that I was reading, and I was really like entrepreneurial in my interest, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. Like I didn't know, I didn't feel creative enough to start a business or whatever. He's like, well, I think you'd be a really good mortgage loan officer. So then I was into mortgage for probably 8 or 9 months. And then actually, no, it was a year later when Mortgage Mastermind came into my life. So I had found like a couple mortgage podcasts where I was like, oh, like I see now what that director, what that mentor meant by the entrepreneurial part and mortgage coming together. Because honestly, my peers at the time, most were not treating it like that. I mean, they were old souls who'd been doing the bank mortgage thing for 30 plus years. They weren't really looking at it like a business. Whereas I started listening to a couple different podcasts, and then on actually TLOP, they had been talking about Mortgage Mastermind in Vegas. And I was like, I want to go to that. Kayla Callender is in my market, and you've interviewed her before too. And I was like, Kayla, let's go to this. And she was like, oh, I don't know if I can leave my dogs. And I was like, this shows you how not busy I was 1 year into my career. I started like doing clip art of like us in Vegas, and I would like send her a text every day. I'm like, we have to go. I don't know why. I don't even know what I thought it was going to be like, but I was like, this just seems like something I want to do. So anyway, I wore it down. We went, and both of us have said in hindsight, like that really opened our eyes to seeing modern mortgage loan officers on the stage and being like, holy crap, like you can make how much money doing this? Like I remember Neil Dinger was there and he put his $3 million, the like backdrop. And I was like, what? Like when, for context, when I started, the person who was recruiting me was like, you can make a lot of money in this business. And I said, could I make $80,000? And he said, yeah, you could make $80,000. So like that was like lights on, holy crap, I can do this. And that like flipped it from there on out. I've only since then surrounded myself with like more people that I respect and really more like that modern mortgage loan officer, whether it's through coaching, podcast, books. Yeah, I think that's made all the difference.
Yeah, I love the call out there about just kind of getting into the right rooms and that being just sort of a big inspiring moment for you. I think that's a really important thing for anybody who's listening is, if you are looking to take that next step, get around the people that have already taken it, like, and find out what they're doing and what life on the other side is like, so you can get a feel for what that really means to go through the journey. And I don't know, I think it just sort of gives you that carrot of what you want to go after. I am curious, like, as far as books go, I'm trying to do myself a favor and be a better reader. Like, is there anything, a book that you would recommend to a loan officer that maybe is trying to think a little more entrepreneurial?
Yeah, and it's not even I mean, I thought 10x is easier than Bex or whatever that book title is. I think I maybe butchered that a little bit. That book I read in the last year, and that book was so different than I thought it was going to be. Like, I thought that book was going to be like the grind is the hardest, and once you do it times two, you can easily do it times 10. But really, what the underbelly of that book is you have to completely throw everything up. Like, you can't just work 10 times as hard, you have to think differently. So I thought that was super, like a really good business book. And one that kept my attention the whole time. I feel like a lot of business books, you get through chapter 2 and you're like, I got it.
Got it.
That's great. But I think the psychology of money, when I'm talking to people that, other loan officers or ops is really a struggle sometimes for them to understand that a client's wishes and how a client might do something is so different than the way that we might personally do something. Or back in the day when I worked at Bath and Body Works, they would teach it like it's not your wallet, it's someone else's wallet. And that's a hard concept for a lot of people to understand. I mean, I'll do back-to-back pre-approval meetings and the first person will be like, well, who would take down payment assistance? And then the very next person will be like, well, oh my gosh, who can just save $10,000? And it's like, it's so in our face all the time as loan officers that you just cannot expect people to think and value money the way that you do. And I just think that book does a really good job of laying out like how to be empathetic to every person's mindset around their finances.
I'm so glad you just mentioned that book because it's literally on its way to my house right now from Amazon. So
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to reading The Psychology of Money. So as your career has progressed, I know we talked about this kind of in preparation for this episode. You mentioned or sort of joked that refinances don't really count in your mind, right? So where did that belief come from, and how does that affect how you run your business today?
Yeah. Well, it was a good timing thing. So the first podcast that I ever listened to around mortgage, that was always her thing was I was listening to that podcast at the beginning of 2022, which is when I really started. So I started in 2021. It was like kind of a rocky start. I was kind of shadowing. I was kind of helping. I wasn't like full blown loan officer. Whereas 2022, I was up to an LOA, and then 2023 is when I like really broke away, free, 100% commission, did the whole thing. But so it was 2022, which everyone else who had just had these monster years, this woman would always be on this podcast, and she'd be like, 2021 wasn't your best year ever. The market gave that to you. You can't count refis. So I've had this in my head forever. Lucky for me, I didn't even have refis as an option until 6 months ago. Like I have built this whole thing on purchase because there was no other option for me, which in hindsight, I'm so glad because it just feels like sprinkles on top now. And I'm trying to rework that a little bit too, because even I'm like, oh my gosh, we're having a monster February, but I'm like, 1.2 comes from refis. That's like not real.
Yeah, and so and I know a lot of people as they grow, they struggle with kind of the ups and downs of the business, a good month here, not so great the next month, things like that. Like,
Mhm.
how do you think about consistency versus those spikes in production?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard because you're always, I mean, I think a lot of people in this industry are always just trying to do better, better, better. But I think what has helped me, and this might not even really be what your question is, but as long as you can keep your expenses low, the better. Like, I am so glad that I was in my mid 20s and literally lived in a $600 a month apartment when I started this career because the I have so much empathy and think it would be so different if you're like trying to support these big bills. And maybe some people are really, maybe that motivates them or whatever, but I just think like there's so much that can go wrong in this industry. And even like when me and my husband now we're talking about how much should our emergency fund, how much, we're talking about these different things in our personal budget. And I'm like, but if I don't close loans for 3 months, and he's like, Katie, are you really going to go 3 months without closing a loan? And I'm like, no, but if that were to happen, like I want our personal life set up to be able to handle that. And I think that's like the number one mistake that someone could make where all of a sudden, oh, cool, you made 200 grand last year. Don't live like you made 200 grand last year. Like I just always have it on the top of my head that like inspections fall apart all the time. People lose their job right before closing sometimes. Like there is so much you cannot control. And when I lose a deal, the fourth thing I think about is my paycheck after my numbers. Oh, all this work, all these other things. I don't have to necessarily think about my paycheck all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great call out too. I mean, you're not in control of every part of the process. There's always that like chance that something could go wrong, someone could change their mind, someone goes with another lender, whatever, right? And so to live your life accordingly, I think is a very wise way of going about it. And it does sort of help you, when you have those opportunities or have that stability to be able to take a risk, take a chance, do those things. That's when you can do some really cool things too. And so I think that was a great, comment that you made there. Now, you're in North Dakota, very bank driven, kind of rate sensitive market. How do you stand out in a market like that where, you've got, just the lowest rate in town down the street at ABC Bank, and but here you are, a great loan officer trying to provide exceptional service. Like what are the things that you mentioned to your referral partners to help you stand out, or clients for that matter too?
Yeah. In my experience, the quicker that I can get in front of a client, the quicker I win. There's so much noise out there, and people, mainly clients, are starving to be noticed. And they don't know to ask for personalized service because when you think about it, if you go get a car loan or if you go get a credit card, which if you're a first time homebuyer, that's really the only experience you've probably had with debt. It is like apply, yes, no, all done within an hour, sometimes 2 minutes at the Kohl's checkout line to get pre-approved for a credit card. So they don't know that we should talk and you have options. And even today, I had a rate shopper call me and I'm like, okay, do you prefer to be quoted with an origination fee or without an origination fee? And he's like, wait, I guess I don't know. I'm like, yeah, you want to hop on a Zoom? Like the quicker that we can just slow it down and have the conversation, I feel like the sooner the shopping stops because it's just like I've had so many people. I had someone recently come into my office and they got up to leave and they're like, we talked to a lot of people and we didn't learn anything. Like we talked to like 5 people, we didn't learn anything. You taking an hour sometimes after 5 p.m. to just like, hey, we're going to start with mortgage 101 and then we're going to work our way back to like what is important to you. I really don't lose many people after that. Once in a while, yeah, it's like you're always going to have the bank shoppers, but I also do think like whereas especially early in my career, being in your 20s is terrible and as soon as someone's dad enters the room, you're cooked. Like now I feel like I've really aligned and it's like it's used to my advantage. Like they are the people who have been in the industry 30 years do not remember that you need to explain what earnest money is. You need to explain what prepaids are on a closing disclosure. You need to explain in a refi what is a true fee versus what is just moving money around because we've got to refill the escrow account and drain this and put the mortgage payment in the prepaid interest. Like, I don't know that anyone else is slowing down to have that conversation. So the sooner that I can, the more success I'm having.
Yeah, I love that. And so part of what you're doing there is not only providing value to the clients, but also the referral partners because you're giving that client a great experience. What do you think referral partners really want from a lender, even if they're not saying it out loud?
Someone who makes them look good. And I don't think people, they might know that, like, oh, I want them to make me look good, but what does that actually look like? Well, that looks like a client who's not confused. Or, I had newer agents sometimes say, well, like, we're in the kitchen, we'll be at these showings and we'll be in the kitchen and they'll be asking me questions about their mortgage and I feel stupid because I don't know the answer. And I'm like, hey, you shouldn't feel stupid that you don't know the answer. You should say, oh my gosh, let's call Katie. She would know that. I don't feel inferior when I don't know some intricacy about in a home inspection. Like, I'm just like, oh no, that's what your realtor's for. I am here to hype up your agent. I'm here to say, I mean, if I believe that, I can't fake it for the life of me, unfortunately. But like, do we make this smoother? Confident clients are going to make quicker and better decisions. There's going to be less over explaining if we're proactive. Like, that is my main word for my team is like offense, offense, offense. Like the minute we are on defense, everything just gets 10 times harder.
And so I know you use, like, for communication purposes, you're using different tools, video, visual breakdowns, things like that. Like, what are the reactions that you usually get from clients when you are going through those types of presentations?
Yeah. They're just like, wow. I mean, I always start a pre-approval meeting with how much do you feel you know about mortgage? Or like on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel about what a mortgage even is? And I struggle with maybe even I like sometimes I'm like, I should stop asking that question because everyone sheepishly is like a 2. Like it is very rare. And the more that you Google, it's like the less that you know because there's so much noise. I don't need my client to know everything about a VA loan if they're not a veteran. And in reality, when they go to ChatGPT or they go to Google, like that's what they're getting. The amount of people that I had that say like, "Oh, I know this," or realtors. I just had a realtor recently who's like, "I know that like you can't do more than 10 acres," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, you can." Like, so just being like, "Hey, I'm just gonna tell you a lot of stuff up front that every single client needs to know, or else it comes back harder down the road to re-explain it." Yeah, it's just like relief. And everyone usually leaves being like, okay, we really got in our heads on that. This was like not a big deal. Why did we wait so long to sit down with you?
Yeah, well, I'm noticing a trend about, how people are just inundated with data. They're overwhelmed by it. And so it feels like we're kind of seeing the pendulum swing back towards we need more face-to-face interaction with the loan officer. We need to be meeting more with our clients. Whereas maybe a few years ago, it was all done over the phone. People were telling me they never met with their client. Very rarely did they ever do that. And it feels like now there's just so much coming at, especially with when the algorithm picks it up and they know you're looking for a mortgage or you're looking to buy a
Mm-hmm.
house, like suddenly you're just getting flooded with things. And it's like, how do you sort through all that? And so there's a distrust that happens. And I think to your point, the best way to overcome that is just to get on the phone, get on a Zoom, get in front of them, have a
Mm-hmm.
good conversation, and make that connection. Now that kind of shifting gears a little bit, you've been clear that leadership and support really matter to you a lot. Like, what does great leadership look like for you from an originator standpoint?
Yeah, I think something like someone who is in it with me, who is like, if you originated 20 years ago, but you haven't originated a loan in a couple years, like, I don't know, and then also at Guild, like, I just love specific, like, my current leadership. Like, they are so helpful in coaching what I need to. And then they have such respect for what might be different by my market. Like, me and my boss have noticed after many conversations, like, my clients are just more anxious than hers. Like, they just are. So while she's super successful, I can't really just copy every single thing she does because I don't get the same results that she does. So, she's been like, okay, like maybe you change this or whatever. And even certain things with like North Dakota Housing is our bond program in North Dakota. The way that my leadership is like, okay, like tell me about that. Whereas in the past, I've had so many leaders that are like, tell, like, and it's just like, oh, well, that's not how it's done. And it's like, no, I love the mutual back and forth of like, here's some coaching that can be great. And here's something else. They don't try to coach me on what they don't know.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's so, and it's just important in general to get coaching and to have leaders that will invest in you in ways that will help you grow, and whether it's in skill, in the way you communicate, in your production, of course, I think that's all very important stuff. Now, I'm just curious, kind of as we look ahead to the future here, like what's one habit that you've developed or a mindset that you've kind of taken on that's been a big difference for you over the last couple of years?
Take it back to just work again for a second, but like really that pre-approval meeting and focusing on getting that meeting first. Like even if that's not what they're asking for. I mean, I've done it from a really long time of, hey, like if you're a first time home buyer, let's get a meeting because then we're gonna do this. Like I've always done that, but now it's almost like every single inquiry I get, it's like, when do you have time for a 30-minute Zoom? Because I can typically fix like you can pretty much fit a 30-minute Zoom into even the busiest of days. And then you're the first person, you've gained that trust right away. And I just think that's been like a game changer in my business. Personally, I go very back and forth with like the waking up early thing. I used to be so good. I used to be such a 4 a.m. person, and I would wake up, work out, do the whole thing. And literally for like 5 years, I woke up at 4 a.m. every single day. And then the problem now that I'm experiencing though is like so many clients, I am more helpful to them in the evening than I am in the morning. So like when I do the 4 a.m. thing, the best of me is done by 3 p.m. and then it's just like frustrating.
Yeah.
So I'm playing around with that. I'm trying to like figure out, okay, what's a good work-life balance to like still feeling like I'm on a schedule and I'm put together and I'm organized versus like also what works for my industry and what's helping me get business now.
Yeah, you're a 4 a.m. loan officer, but a 9 p.m. client, and it doesn't really
Yeah.
mix.
Yeah. And I'm like, people, like I had someone text me last night at 5:30 and my phone was down and whatever. And this sort of like, they're not going to believe me that I just had a mental crisis yesterday because it's negative 10 degrees and I went to sleep at 6 p.m. Like, sorry I didn't get back to you. I literally was asleep by 6:15 because I can't do January in Fargo, North Dakota.
Right. So for anyone who's listening, I mean, what are some of the things that you're focused on for the future? Like, what's going to be important to you as an originator from a skills standpoint to really be sharp on and make sure that you're, leveraging whether it's a tool or whatnot, to stay relevant and to continue growing and stay ahead of the
Yeah.
trend.
Yeah, definitely working on the team building aspect still. I've got one LOA who I've been fortunate enough, she's only been my LOA for about a year and a half, but I've been fortunate enough to work with her for years and years and years. So we've got a very good working relationship. And I was joking with you earlier, like it scares me because building that team was hard, even with this like amazing person who I have all this history with. So bringing in a stranger and like doing it all over again overwhelms me, but I know it's necessary to keep growing. And then also like I had a big reflection last year of my database. You know, for years when you're starting out, you hear people talk about database, your CRM, your past clients. And all of my past clients had come to me like within the last 18 months up until the end of last year. So last year was the first year that I was like, holy crap, I have some repeat clients. I have repeat client referrals. One in every four people I helped last year was not from an agent, which shocked me. If you would have just asked me, I would have said, oh, yeah, I'm like 95% agent with some financial advisor. I didn't really take a step back and realize how much like the networking and sphere of influence and just loving on your past clients was really working. So I'm kind of all in on that for this year. I'm like, yes, the agents are important. I want to help and partner with agents. It's great. It's always going to be the bread and butter. But if I can see that results with only 200 closed loans, if I get to the end of this year and I'm at 400 closed loans, how can that just keep multiplying? Because it is incredible how many people don't go back to their original loan officer. You know, even people now that I'm getting referred from their agents, like, oh yeah, they went to this bank 2 years ago, but they're open to new things. I'm like, huh, why are they open to new ones? Like my clients text me all the time things that they really could Google, but I'm not about to tell them to Google it because I like being the expert and I think it's showing up in dividends later.
Yeah, I love that. And you're totally right. Like, I can't remember the statistic, but I want to say it's like at least 80% of borrowers will find another loan officer. It's probably a higher number than that.
Yeah, I heard
Uh,
like 17. I heard that 17% use the loan officer for the refi. Like it's the same. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it speaks to how well if you treat it transactionally and you're not staying in touch with people on a follow-up, then what's their loyalty to you, you know? And so I think that's kind of speaks to how well you're staying in contact after the fact and not
Hmm.
making it a transactional experience. But Katie, I just want to thank you for being a part of the lowdown. Is before we say goodbye, is there a question I didn't ask or anything that you'd like to share with anyone who's listening that might be valuable?
Yeah, I really liked the question that you had brought up earlier before we were recording about how do you balance being thorough without overwhelming people. I
Okay.
think that I was like, that is a really, really good question. And this is judgy, but sometimes, there's other loan officers that I work with and they'll be like, hey, this is my pre-approval presentation. And I'm like, half of this is not necessary. I will just answer that question if you're okay with it. So
Yeah, good.
I have like a 6 or 7 slide deck that I show to every single first time buyer, and then I have a different one for move up buyers. The first time buyer one is literally like, what is FHA versus conventional? And I preface it with like, hey, I don't want you to be out for beer with your friends in a few weeks and hear that they got a 5.5% interest rate and not understand like what the heck, why didn't Katie get me that? And like I'll show them like conventional versus FHA and for you make sense here, even though the interest rate's higher over here or whatever. Just like some super simple things there. And then I have other things ready that maybe like one in every 10 clients will ask about. You're always going to have your like amortization engineer people who start asking a question about what about the extra payment. You're always going to have people who have a question about like, is buying a home even a good investment? I don't even know if that's really our lane as much. Like, we can absolutely show them. Most of the time, if they've taken the time to fill out an application, to sit down in front of you, they already think buying a home is an investment. Like, I've seen so many loan officers that they're like, let me show you how much your house is going to appreciate. Unless maybe 3% of my clients will go down that rabbit hole. I have certain things favorited on my desktop so that I can quickly show them different things. But really, there's only like 6 or 7 things that every single client needs to know or is going to ask later if you don't bring up front. Otherwise, like you don't need to be showing rate sheets, amortization calculators, all this extra stuff for every single client. Because I think that's where people lose people too. And I just think attention spans, especially, are getting shorter and shorter. I am explaining same thing over and over and over again. And then they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Like the last thing we need to do is cloud it with whatever. I also don't start with like, also a little bit about me. Here's a picture. Like, no, we just like get to the stuff and then they get to know me and we gain that trust along the way, as opposed to like, I'm going to take you down all these things. And I think loan officers overcompensate because they're nervous that they're going to ask about this. When in reality, like you can just take that question in stride. I take my time in those pre-approval meetings and I'm like, what else? Any other questions? Do you have any homes favorited on Zillow that we can just run right now? Like a specific address, I can look up the property taxes for you, just to kind of like build the relationship that way and focus on what's important to them, which goes back to that psychology piece of it, where it's really hard to predict what someone might care about. You might be laying awake at night being like, oh my gosh, like they're going to shop me against this other company who has a lower rate, when they don't actually give a crap about their rate, and they would tell you that to their face if they had the language for it and if you had asked, but you just quickly went to like cutting your rate and all this other panic.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great comment there as well. You you run the risk of scaring someone off by over educating them, in my opinion, right? Like you can do too much and get to a place where someone goes, man, that was so over my head. And then if the next person they talk to gives a very clear, concise picture of what the future looks like, it's like, well, they're an obvious choice. You know, I don't know what they say. There's if you can't explain it in 15 seconds, you don't understand it well enough or something like that. So it's like if you can't get to the point,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, you might be overcompensating, and people feel that. Uh, and so I think that's a great, comment there. But Katie, I really appreciate you being a part of this. I thank you so much for kind of being in this community now and just sharing your insights and wisdom on this podcast. And if there's, any way I can support you to let me know, but I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Connor.